We're going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. For roll call, we have everybody here. We do have an executive announcement. There was an executive session for the school board that was held on May 16th to discuss some personnel items. And we're going to move on to public comment. Do I have any public comment here? Is that how many slips? No. Do I have any public comment online? Do not. All right, then we're going to move on to presentations. High school sports recognition.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite our Director of Athletics and Co-Curricular Activities, Mr. Steve Ansbach.
Thank you, Dr. Finnerty and school board members. Tonight it's a great night where we get to recognize our all-academic athletes and our citizen athletes that were selected for their great achievements within the classroom and within the community. The student athletes that you'll see in front of you today have earned Pioneer Athletic Conference recognition as athletes at Pottsgrove. It's a wonderful accomplishment, and we're so proud of their efforts on a daily basis within our school. I just want to read their names off to you. There's 23 athletes. Some of them have achieved this recognition in multiple seasons. Sydney Cox, cheerleading. Daniel Corman, boys cross country. Noelle Barone, girls cross country. Ava Sibley, field hockey. Colson Gale, football. Cooper Simon, boys golf. Kayvon Chin, boys soccer. Kelly Nyhart, girls soccer. Vienna Lee, girls soccer. Chelsea Wozdick, girls volleyball. And our senior athlete in the fall was Miley Schechterly. In the winter, Dominic Parkinson in swimming. Declan Keener in swimming. Sydney Cox again in winter cheerleading. Cooper Simon in boys basketball. Michaela Ekman in girls basketball. Nate Gillen in wrestling, and Aaliyah Freeman as our citizen athlete in the winter. And this spring, Declan Tabor in tennis, Caitlin Lepresti in softball, Dawadi Machuki in boys track and field, Kelly Nyhart in girls track and field, Ryan Van Bramer in baseball, Dominique Parkinson in girls lacrosse, Cooper Simon in boys lacrosse, and Megan Neeson as our citizen athlete. And these athletes are selected because of their grade point averages on their respective teams. The highest grade point average of our seniors or juniors gets selected as our citizen athlete, which gets recommended to the conference. And then we take, I ask all our coaches in the fall, winter, and spring to nominate deserving athletes for citizen athlete awards. So they'll give me a recommendation, and then I pick those citizen athletes. Collectively, there's 23 of them and 3 citizen athletes, but their grade point averages is a 4.37, which is very impressive. But also as impressive as their grades, these students are also multi-sport athletes. They're district qualifiers. They participate in the high school musical. They're members of chorus. They're elected leaders in many of their co-curricular clubs. One's a junior PIAA official. One has raised over $1,000 for unified sports and our Cool Schools challenges that we recently have. They have volunteered at many local community outreach programs, and one has even recorded 400 strikeouts in her career as a softball player. And to top it off, they have incredible respect for our school district, and they have incredible respect for one another. So we appreciate and thank all of our 23 athletes for their commitment to athletic and academic life as they excel in the classroom and the community. I do want to bring up Cooper Simon and Sydney Cox just to give a few words of how they balance their academic life and their athletic life, which in my opinion sets them up for future success as an adult in this world. So Cooper and Sydney.
So today I'm going to talk about how balancing sports and school has helped me and is going to help me in my future. Having the ability to balance my education with my athletics and training, it teaches me how I'm going to have to balance my work life with my home life and make sure that my family and my work gets done properly. So that's why I think it was important what I've done in school, because it's building a foundation for later in life.
My name is Sydney Cox. I'm involved in a lot of the activities here at Pottsgrove, even aside from sports, like Anspach was mentioning, the musical, and a lot of our clubs and volunteering. I've just had to balance a lot of it over the years, figuring out that good work, sports, life balance, and Pottsgrove's done a really good job at helping me create that balance and learn a lot of valuable skills like time management and teamwork, and especially leadership over the years. And it's really just helped, like Cooper said, kind of build a foundation for all the future work we have to do. And it's given such an experience where I've been able to make lots of connections and really just create this world that is Pottsgrove athletics. And the community has been way supportive and extremely beneficial to, I think, everybody involved.
And I just want to thank the school board for their commitment to our athletics and co-curricular programs. There's so many great life skills, as you heard from two of our student athletes, that set them up for future success. And without your commitment to the athletic program and the co-curricular program, we wouldn't be able to share these stories. So thank you very much. And again, to our athletes that are here, thank you for doing what you do. I appreciate it. I know that it's a commitment when you could be doing other things, but you're playing sports, you're involved in a lot of activities, and you're also excelling at a high level in the classroom. So great work. Do we want to bring them up? Yeah, can we have our athletes that are here all come up so we can get a group picture of all of you?
And we're back, Deputy. But thank you very much for all the athletes and what they do and such like that. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to presentation CMTA. Giza.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us back tonight. Again, Mike Lang, and this is Ed Dahl. So we're just going to give you a quick recap from our operations committee and facility committee meeting from last 2 weeks ago. So we go next slide. So again, yeah, we'll get the recap. We're going to get an update on some proposed 2024 summer projects and then some next steps. So again, at the meeting 2 weeks ago, we kind of talked through the development of a 10-year plan here with the administration, the board, the professionals, Schrader Group architects, and how this is an ongoing effort. What we want to begin with here tonight is the design for you to consider authorizing the design of some projects at West Pottsgrove Elementary. And again, 2 weeks ago, I made a statement that we're talking about summer 2024 projects, but, if those projects have any chance to actually happen in the summer of 2024, the design process really does have to begin right now. It's part of the planning process, and that's why we're here this evening to hopefully get an authorization to proceed. So again, we had some good Q&A from the folks that were here last week or 2 weeks ago. I keep saying last week, 2 weeks ago. And again, the last checkbox here is the exploratory work on the envelope, right? So that will be in a few weeks. We'll come back. Right now, there is a scope of work that we've helped the district put together. The district does have some pricing from one vendor, and Ms. Young is trying to get some other quotes from other vendors to bring back in a couple weeks. So we'll have a much more detailed update on that in a few weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed to just kind of briefly touch on the projects that we're talking through.
Thanks, Mike. So when we were here last time, when we were at the committee meeting, we talked about 2 HVAC options at West Pottsgrove. We mentioned that there were many that we considered, but 2 that really make the most sense based on the existing systems that are there currently and the infrastructure that's in place. So if you recall, or if you're familiar, it has a 4-pipe system there. Chilled water is created by an air-cooled chiller on the roof, and hot water is created by a boiler in a mechanical room. Each classroom has unit ventilators in it that sit on the floor. They were installed in 1996 to provide both ventilation and conditioning needs for the classroom. But in 2005, there were outside air units added on the roof, and ductwork was added to each classroom to provide ventilation air to those classrooms. So at that time, and this is how the building operates today, the unit ventilators were made to only provide conditioning, and then the outside air units on the roof provide ventilation to the space. And in our opinion, that was a good project for the district that helps improve humidity control and comfort levels in the classroom. And it's also important when we start talking about these HVAC options. And one other note before we get into these options, we're calling them HVAC projects. They really are more encompassing than that, and we have a note at the bottom here, but it just talks about, it's complete controls, so complete HVAC, BAS controls replacements, all electrical items related to these HVAC systems. We fully commission the systems. There'll be general trades work associated with the project, so we'll replace the ceilings, and then there'll be some other general trades work. So the unit ventilators that sit on the floor, when they're removed, there'll be a void there next to the cabinetry. We'll work with the administration staff and the facilities department to determine a solution that works best for the district there. We design these. We create the design documents that will be bid out to multiple contractors. Then we manage the construction and do the test and balancing, water treatment. So really we'll design and bid and build these projects, and these costs you see here include all those services in them. So moving into the options, we talked about 2 last time, and we say option A here, and it has that red check mark because that was determined to be the preferred option. So when Mike talks about the letter of intent and notice to proceed, what that means for us is that the option we'll design for this building would be the geothermal renovation. And we talked about the reasons last time. So for a geothermal system, for us to consider it as a viable option, one thing, you have to make sure there's available site for it. So if you can picture West Pottsgrove, to the west side of the building, there's a field there. To the left of the parking lot and the loading dock there's a field. So that's where we envision this geothermal well field going. It's in close proximity to the existing mechanical room, so that helps from routing the pipes there and then distribution throughout the building. And secondly, we talked about the ventilation project, or the outside air units that were added in 2005 and getting that ventilation ductwork in there. So when you go with a heat pump or water source heat pump renovation, each classroom is going to have a heat pump to do the conditioning, but you need to get ventilation air into those classrooms. That 2005 renovation helps because for us, one of the trickier parts of these renovations is getting ductwork down corridors where all the existing utilities are, and it's kind of jam-packed. So that helps with this project. And then for you, as owners and representatives of the district, obviously cost is a consideration. And traditionally, geothermal systems have a higher cost. They're more expensive than other HVAC systems. But with the Inflation Reduction Act and incentives that are available now to tax-exempt entities through a direct payment option, those make those options, similar to other, HVAC options. And you'll see here we show for Geo an estimated cost of $8.1 million. With the incentives that would be made available to the district a year or 2 after the system is in operation, we're estimating those to be $1.8 million. So that would bring that net project cost to $6.3 million. Comparing that to the fan coil unit option there, you see it's right in line, actually a little bit less than what we're estimating that cost to be. And secondly, as an owner, you want to be familiar with the systems and have a comfort level with the systems that are installed. And this system already exists at Ring and Rock, so there's a geothermal system there now with heat pumps. So your facilities department, Dave and his crew, they're all familiar with that system and the technology. So they have that comfort level. And then we don't have the slide here today, but we presented it previously where we show the energy consumption for buildings throughout the district. And Ring and Rocks is your best performing from an energy consumption standpoint on a relative basis. So it consumes the least amount of energy on an annual basis, and that can be attributed to the geosystem that's there. And then we mentioned locating the water source heat pump above the ceiling. So right now there's unit ventilators in the classroom, in the classroom environment. You can consider, for the heat pump option, getting them above the ceiling, out of the classrooms. It helps with air distribution, comfort level, and noise levels within the classroom. The other option we talked about was an in-kind 4-pipe fan coil unit. We say in-kind here because it would still be like a chilled water, hot water system, so you can use the existing chiller that was replaced in 2018, but then you would replace the boilers with more efficient boilers. You can, similar to the heat pump option, you can get a fan coil unit above the ceiling, and then it obviously has a more economical first cost, but as I touched on, the project cost, net first cost is less, but the ultimate net project cost would be similar to a geo option. And then lastly, obviously, the main advantage of a geo system is the energy savings you would get. So you can see that we're estimating, annual savings for a geo project from the current energy use for that building, it would be around $21,000 per year, where for a fan coil unit project, it would be about $10,000. And then you can see what that would look like over the course of 20 years with energy escalation factored in. So, that was a lot. Are there any questions about this before we move into some other project options? Next slide, please. So project 2, we're calling it, and this is other projects that we would design and bid to contractors, is a roof replacement with a solar option. The roof replacement's straightforward. All other schools in the district have had their roof replaced within the last 10 years with a white roof. This roof is from 1996. It's a ballasted roof. You can see the photo there. The estimated cost we show is from the Schrader Group assessment of $2.93 million. That's right in line with the numbers we were estimating, as well as an estimate that this district received themselves. But the main thing to talk about here is a solar option. So solar, with the rates that are available, is not favorable in this area, and we would not recommend it for any of your other schools. The reason we're showing it here to consider is because you are considering replacing your roof, there are incentives available for the roof portion of that project if the roof replacement is done as part of a solar project, as long as the roof contains certain attributes that help with the production of the solar array. So we show what that incentive looks like. So there's IRA incentives for geosystem and then a solar system. So that would be $210,000. So the estimated project cost is $810,000. The incentives for the solar project only would be $210,000, and then what we're estimating for the incentives to get the new roof, which would only be available, like these incentives, this $120K, would only be available if you install the solar array as well, would be $120,000, and then through other incentives, it would get the net project cost for a solar system down to $450,000. And those costs are actually based on a system that would, so that the production from the solar would match consumption that's produced or the energy consumption throughout the year. So it would be, a net zero, or it has net zero potential with this solar array installed. And I think one other thing to touch on is that the legislation for the IRA is more clear for a solar project or geo. It's a little less clear for a new roof and what that would include. But what we would do, we would design it, we would bid it, and we would flush out those numbers, and then ultimately we'd bring out those flushed out numbers and those savings to you and allow you to make the decision if it makes sense for the district. These are just estimates and what we're seeing now, and again, we only think it makes sense to consider because you are getting a new roof. In 5 years, you couldn't install solar and get the same incentive. You can only get it at the same time as doing a roof replacement. Next slide, please. And then a couple other projects is, these were taken from the Schrader assessment. They were listed as priority 1 items, which then means replacement in 0 to 5 or 1 to 5 years. These are not projects that need to happen at the same time as an HVAC renovation. They don't facilitate the renovation, but they do make sense to consider at the same time because, you'll have ceilings removed, so you can, we're talking about a generator replacement and fire protection, so you can easily run sprinkler piping when the ceilings are out. And then you'll also have contractors already mobilized on site, so you kind of save costs from having to do that again at another time. But what these projects entail is a generator replacement and likely relocating that outside to comply with current codes, and then adding an additional transfer switch to add life safety loads to that. And then fire protection would be extending. So there's an existing fire protection system at West that was installed in 1996, but it only installed the additions at that time. So the original portion of the building, which is about 20,000 square foot, is unsprinklered, and the rest of the 40,000, there's a 40,000 section that is sprinklered. So this project would be sprinklering that unsprinklered section and extending the sprinkler heads there, as well as replacing the fire pump. And so that's all the project options. I'll turn it back over to Mike to, provide a recap and then the next steps for this project.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So just to recap, right, and step back a second. These are obviously projects that are big ticket items, and right now we're looking to begin the design phase of that, right? So we're talking about $10 million plus, $10 to $12 million plus of potential projects for next summer. Typically, like a design fee could be in that 4 to 5%, ballpark. So you'd be talking like $500,000 or so in design fees, right? And that's not what our intent is, to charge you these design fees and give you design. We are going to do a full design, as you'll see on the next slide, all the way to construction documents. Our break fee would be $195,000 if the district decided not to pursue any of these projects or these projects. So let's say you authorize this letter of intent this evening. We would do all of our work, all the way to construction documents, basically bid documents that you would own, right? At the end, obviously, you're paying for it. If you do end up doing the projects, right, if we come back and these projects look good and there's something you could do and they're feasible, that 195 goes away. Obviously, all of our fees and everything are embedded into the project cost. So it's called a break fee. It's kind of in the industry standard, up to date. We've done a lot of work on like what they call an opportunity assessment and, putting these preliminary things together. We've done some work with your facilities department on those doors and this, exploratory work. But at this point, we do need to engage the engineers to put drawings together and all that kind of good stuff. So that's going to take, through the summer. I mean, if we just go to the next slide. As you can see, we've got a timeline kind of a May, begin now, back in the fall, really, and obviously a lot of touch points in between, clearly with the administration and the folks here, and we're available. We've been here almost every other week, so we're available to continue to come in and update you folks as we progress at your desire. But you can see we would end up with complete final construction documents and then a full package for you to consider at some point. And again, like Ed mentioned, the big ticket items there are your HVAC solution, your roof. Solar's obviously like, hey, we want to do that, right? We want to flush that out, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just something to explore while we're looking at it, and it's a good thing to just have that exploration. And then those other two projects that Ed mentioned, straight from the Schrader report, they're priority one, kind of life safety issues. Again, they don't have to be done, just something to consider. And then along the way, if there's other things that pop up that maybe you want us to take a look at, we'd be happy to as well. So that would be that's the timeline, that's the consideration tonight. We'd be hoping to hear any feedback or any thoughts. Any questions?
All right, so at this point, we don't have this as a item to actually make a motion on. Normally, we do presentations and the motions next, but it sounds like we're looking for a motion.
No, there is item 7.6 is the letter of intent to proceed, and that commits the district to the break fee that Mr. Lang talked about. So that would authorize CMTA to move forward with design and to begin building the design documents.
So the actual vote would take place when we get to 7.6 on the agenda.
Yes. So when you go back to the HVAC project one, where we're discussing option A and option B, we would be making a decision now to commit to option A, because they're not going to be building design documents for both options.
Does anybody have any questions while they're up here before we get into our discussion of it?
I do have a question about the solar.
Sure.
The panels, we would own them, or they would be leased?
Yeah, no, this is not a power purchase agreement or something. This would be your solar panels that are just, reducing or generating the load, thus, reducing the need for outside power. It's not, yeah, they're yours. They're absolutely 100% yours. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for the two gentlemen? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to move on to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. We have a long agenda, so I'll keep my report very brief. We are moving up on everybody's favorite day. Commencement, class of 2023. Congratulations. This is our last board meeting before we'll be out on the field celebrating the class of 2023. So congratulations all. It's been a wonderful year, and it's been great getting to know you, and I wish you well and look forward to our celebration next Friday. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to action items personnel, 6.1.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 6.1.
I have a motion and a second to approve 6.1. Do we have any questions or comments on that one?
Yes, I would like, Patricia Carroll, Patty Carroll has been with us forever, and she's wonderful. And I just wish her the very, very best.
I would also she's had a tremendous positive impact on all four of my kids, not just in teaching them how to, push their own boundaries, but also how to balance their life in general. So I'm very appreciative of all she has done for my kids as well as the other kids that have fallen under her bailiwick. So thank you very much, Pat.
She will be missed, no doubt. But I wish her all the luck, and I hope she has a wonderful retirement.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 6.2.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 6.2 through 6.4.
I have a motion and a second to approve 6.2 through 6.4. We have any questions or comments on those? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 6.5.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the retirement of support staff, 6.5.
I have a motion and a second to approve 6.5. Anybody have any comments or questions on that one?
Just wish Gail the best.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. We're going to move on to 6.6.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve 6.6 through 6.14.
I have a motion and a second to approve 6.6 through 6.14. Anybody have any comments or questions? Go ahead.
I did have a question on 6.7. I was just a bit confused about the dates because we're approving something for 2022 through June 2nd of this year. So I wasn't sure if that was a typo or if that's just where I wasn't sure. Like, it's already started, so that's why I wasn't quite sure.
So the public heard that. What we did was we backdate it for FMLA for one particular person. All right, anybody have any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to action item 7.1, business.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 7.1.
A motion and a second to approve 7.1. Is there any comments or questions on there? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 7.2.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 7.2.
A motion and a second to approve 7.2. Any comments or questions on that one?
Could we have a slight explanation for the community, please?
Yes, so this is a grant that from PCCD that we have applied for, and we were awarded $2,228 and, well, $957. And this is used, these funds are used for, to support mental health of students, and we have them earmarked to support Springfield Psychological.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 7.3.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 7.3.
I have a motion and a second to approve 7.3. Do we have any comments or questions on that one? Hearing none. All those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
So the previous one was 228,000, this comes in at 277. They could,
So action item 7.2 was a competitive grant that we won and it's going to cover in part. It doesn't quite cover everything, but we're using, we applied for that grant to support mental health of students. That's what it has to be used for. So it's not going to cover the entire cost of Springfield Psychological, but it's going to cover a significant portion of it.
Yeah, so we roughly get about 50 minutes.
I was just making sure that they were one and the same.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 7.4.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 7.4.
I have a motion and a second to approve 7.4. Do we have any comments or questions on that one?
Explanation, Dr. Finnerty, please.
I'm going to ask Dr. Lucas to provide the explanation.
So this is an opportunity, this is a group that reached out to us and they provide, it's free, they have this funding that they have through other sources and they've worked with other districts. They come in and they offer leadership opportunities for girls and at our middle and high school. We're thinking we start with our middle school. It's like a period, a cycle, something like that, that they come in. The school team will determine who gets to participate, but it's a great experience opportunity to kind of build those pro-social leadership skills in our students. So when we saw this opportunity, we raised our hand and are happy for this partnership. So it'll be new next year. And again, no cost to the district, but a great opportunity. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you. This sounds like a wonderful opportunity for us. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Now, for 7.4, I'm going to amend the 7.5. 7.5, I need to amend a smidge of that proposal. In your packet, it's going to show setting the assessment of the property at $9.5 million. It's actually fair market value, not the assessment. Fair assessment is much lower. It's like 40% or something like that. So it's the fair market value of $9.5 million. All right, now I need a motion. Do I have to change the motion at all?
You could just ask for a motion as amended.
I'm asking for a motion as amended with the fair market value part.
Second.
Motion approved. There's a second. All right. So now I'm going to have any comments or questions on this particular item. Hearing none. All those in, oh, wait. We have
Attorney Comer from Fox Rothschild did an excellent job of negotiating that, where that money came in at.
Thank you, and he mentioned what a pleasure it was to work with you also.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody have any other comments or questions on this one? Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to 7.6.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve 7.6.
I have a motion and a second to approve 7.6. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that one? All right, I do. On this particular one, right now, we're at roughly around $10 million outlay, right? What do we have in capital currently?
We have about 5 million in capital, right now. And with the, before next year, we would have, we're gonna add to it probably, if we have any excess this year, we can add to that, which we're projecting some excess. And then, with our next year, we have 1.2 million from the general fund going into capital, so that puts us at least at 6.2, and I'd have to subtract all the projects that we have ongoing. We definitely, we wouldn't have to go out for a bond issue. We would not have to go for a bond issue. What I would recommend doing is going out for a bank note. You don't have to pay all those fees, and it's a lot cheaper. So we can kind of coordinate, you can do a bank note for up to 10 million, and it's a lot cheaper.
What's the length in payback?
When's the payback? You can spread that out too as far as you need, but you can still do a bank note. You don't have to pay, it really reduces your fees that you're gonna pay to do the whole bond issue. So you're allowed to borrow up to that 10 million in a note. So I
And
think
the
we
interest
coordinate
fees would be comparable or
the
beneficial?
interest. Yeah, should be comparable. I mean, depends on what the market is. We would definitely go out and start pricing probably if you agree to do this project now. Once you agree to, we would start going out and pricing the market.
So that's the reason why I wanted to make sure everybody was aware before we approve everything, because obviously once we approve, we're on the hook only for $195,000. That's still a lot of money to be on the hook for. So I wanted to make sure that everybody's kind of committed to, we would have to bring on some debt. There's no question about this. We're going to have to add some debt if we're going to do this project. So does anybody have any comments or questions or discussions about that? Well, as we said, we can make it to where it's 5 years, 7 years. I mean,
Right.
we'd be giving them $10 million next summer.
No, you're not committing to the $10 million. You're authorizing to their design of the project with a cost up to the $195,000, I think it is. And then if you decide during the course of the design development, at some point you're going to be requested to authorize proceeding with the project. At that point, you're going to be committing to the 10 million less the 100, or whatever the project costs are, less the 195,000, because that's going to be included in the project cost, the ultimate contract.
Those projects are typically paid in thirds.
It would be paid, what's the construction period, a year? Do you know?
No, it's like summer, fall.
Summer?
Yeah.
We'd be looking to start and finish that project during the summer.
Well then, so
least
you're
the-
going to be paying your progress payments over the course of the summer. Final payment would be due upon final completion of the project itself. So if you're talking about a summer 2024 project, you're going to start in May, June making your payments, and you're going to pay through completion.
And I would just, again, highlight that we've been talking about the west roof for quite some time. There is no question that we need to do something with west roofs. The solar does make sense. Well, if the solar makes sense, if when they see the numbers, we can make the decision on that. And our HVAC system is on borrowed time as well. So like these are significant expenditures that are going to happen in the very near term.
I had a
Anybody
question
else?
with regard to the IRA savings, and how long, is that something that is disseminated right away, or is that something that comes in pieces, or just kind of like, I know that's quite a significant amount of money. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It comes in year 2.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It has to be in operation for a full year, is that right?
correct.
Okay.
I
Is
just
there
have
any
a real quick
question
question.
regarding the availability of those credits?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're here for at least the next 7 to 10 years, no doubt. There's a ton of money in that IRA. It's just, we're on the very front of it,
Go ahead, Patty.
My question, just wondering, if on the bank note, is that a fixed rate?
Excuse me?
Is that a fixed rate on the bank note?
Yeah, you could get a fixed note. Right now, I would, until the project is approved, I would wait to go out because interest rates, I think, are going to come down a little bit. So we just want to, see what the market's going to do and when it's going to be best to go out for that.
Thank you.
I know this is only a proposal to do the plan, but when we get to the bidding, we've seen what happened with the doors. They were 4 times the difference there. I don't know where those bids and all things came from, but that leaves questions in my mind of who's getting these bids and where we're getting them from and so forth. So I would like to make sure that we get to see that before any of that happens for me to approve it. But I know we're only on hook for a plan at the $195,000. So I question all of that. It seems a little convoluted, if you ask me, of intermingled people here. So just my 2 cents.
So I do want to clarify for the record that CMTA was not involved in the doors. That was something that we talked about, but they weren't the ones who got the original quote. They weren't the ones who designed the scope of the work. Once we got that first large number, then we got them more involved in it and actually had them take a look at the scope of work, and that's how we resulted in the contract that we did go.
Yeah, the doors went through an evolutionary process. The original $250,000 bid was for an entirely different set of things. Just the number of doors varied. Also, the conditions of the doors changed from, as I recall, and I could be wrong on this, 6 doors, all of which had to be wheelchair accessible, to 4 doors, of which I think only 1 is wheelchair accessible. So the disparity is in part due to the evolution of what was being contracted for. The other reality which we have to deal with is the reality of the condition of the building. The HVAC is something that needs to be done. We've got deterioration of the masonry, which there's been a photograph passing around that will need to be done hopefully over the summer. And there are serious charges. As I mentioned many times, the problem with deferred maintenance is it's a high interest loan, and you really don't know what the cost is going to be until these gentlemen have done a fair amount of work. And the kids, the students, are the ones who have to put up with, right now, a building that's out of code with respect to fire alarms. And these are conditions that we need to deal with, and you pay me now or you pay me later. And that's the situation that we're looking at. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I do have just one more question. I know kind of anytime we've had some work done, inevitably some things have happened down the line, and you kind of come to know that that's going to happen. But do we have any sort of assurances? I guess what's coming to mind is we had the HVAC system here, and some settings were off, and former administration had to kind of fight tooth and nail to make headway with that particular vendor. Is there any sort of support that we have through the group here for things of that nature, if maybe the plan wasn't quite suitable after the fact?
And we offer a 1-year warranty on it. And then as part of our process where we these aren't we estimate savings here, but as part of this process, we're going to guarantee savings as part of the GISA, and so we do a whole, and the way we do that is through a whole building meter. So if if we say you're going to save this amount and you're currently spending this amount, if that doesn't happen, then we're on the hook for that. So that's how we do it, and that's throughout the course of this 20-year project. So we'll guarantee the energy savings as part of this process as well, and we'll be on there looking at your bills. And for us, it's a way, like, we commission the system, so we know how they're operating. And for us, that's a way to check. If we see the bills are coming back higher, we know something's off, and we'll go back and look at that. And it's a way, I mean, it incentivizes us. Like, we're on the hook for those, so we want to make sure the buildings operate as efficiently as possible.
There's also a good amount of training that's involved too, and it's not just like a one-time thing. It's usually like seasonal. So it's rather than just come once, you come, to the 4 different seasons. And then I do want to just back up. Our process is completely transparent. So like bids come in, you see them, everybody sees them. They come in and, we have a schedule of values that's agreed to. Bids are transparent, the vendors, all that stuff. So there'll be, you'll see all that data as it comes in before you get to the point where you're approving anything. I mean, all that is going to be part of this process.
The other thing I'd point out is because it's being done under the GISA format, it's design build, so you don't have finger pointing between a design professional and the contractor, which is what you have a lot of times in public construction projects.
Thank you.
Dr. Nimmer, do you have something?
Yeah, just a brief observation. My feeling on these kinds of projects, and I've dealt with them various times in my career, is that an extensive renovation like this really should be a spectator sport. And by that I mean we have an obligation, the board has an obligation, the administration has an obligation, not just to say, go off and fix it, and I'll see you in September when the kids go back. Our obligation is to be there and see what's going on and do our due diligence. And certainly, I've been involved with the operations committee on this, and I intend to be there. One of the virtues of being retired is I can go around and take a peek.
Hold on for a second here. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. You're saying you want to be there when they're doing the building?
Sure.
I think that's why we're hiring them, as in to be there. And we're the money guy, not the
We're the money
construction
guys, but if we need to be happy with what's being done and know what's being done while it's there, while, for instance, the masonry is down and the structural members are exposed. I'd like to see that.
Hey, I don't know the
if
legality of
these
that
guys
kind of
give me
stuff, but
permission.
that's over my expertise. So my expertise is to fund, not to manage it.
Well, I'm not going to pay for it, so you can pay for it.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Sorry, I didn't mean to make fun of you, but I think that's a serious obligation. Certainly, when Widener renovated the buildings, people were around watching and not supervising, but observing what was done. And if there were changes that had to be made, it was easier to make them in process than after the fact.
I'll say that's a discussion for a later date then.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, now we're going to we're only voting for the 195, but understanding that it could be obviously up to the 10 million that you're going to commit during next year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You guys got it. We're going to move on to action items, education.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 8.1.
I have a motion, a second, to approve 8.1, the new student clubs. Any comments or questions on
I do
these?
have a comment and I do have a question. Congratulations, we're going to have a unified sports of freshman boys basketball. That's fantastic. Is this in the winter?
Yeah, let me clarify what this is. Both of these teams currently exist. So what this vote is by law, we need a vote for them to establish a student activity fund so that then can raise, so they can do some fundraising and support their activities. That's all we're voting for here. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little confusing because I knew we had unified sports. I mean, that was, Emily talked about that so often, so I was very confused.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to action item 8.2.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 8.2.
I have a motion and a second to approve 8.2. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that one? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to MCIU board update.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so just a few of the highlights from the meeting on 4/26. There is another meeting tomorrow night, which I'm, fingers crossed, will be attending in person this time. The last two I've had to Zoom. So the department that presented was the Office of Early Childhood Services. They oversee early intervention and stuff like that. Anybody who has ever needed that for their children understands what I'm talking about. So one of the things they were excited about was that Fox 29 News visited the Souderton Early Intervention Classroom to highlight the fundraising efforts made by a parent of one of the students in partnership with the Philadelphia Eagles Autism Challenge. So they did show as part of the interview that was done. Other than that, they just, showed a presentation just explaining what they do, and then, lots of pictures of the kids that are involved and stuff like that. I'm just going to pull a few things out. So Jeff Sultanic did report that all constituent school districts voted to approve the MCIU 23-24 membership services budget. Let's see. Fox Rothschild was reappointed as solicitor. There wasn't really a whole lot that went on. And then there was a couple of big dates. May 15th was the 23rd annual MCIU Education Foundation Golf Classic at Brookside Country Club in Pottstown. And then there was, I'm looking for the date when Jeff Sultanic was.
It was Friday, last Friday.
Friday? Okay. So last Friday there was was it like a party or a?
It was the Community Partnership School, which is a not-for-profit, which operates a educational program for mainly underprivileged children in the city. Awarded Jeff Person of the Year Award, Man of the Year Award type thing.
Cool. Anyway, I'm glad you were there because I didn't really know what was going on. Anyway, that was about it. It was a fairly short meeting, so.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, we're going to move on to committee items. We have Policy Committee.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve 10.1.
I have a motion and a second to approve Policy Committee meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move on to the Operations Facility Committee report. Dr. Nippert.
Normally, my voice is loud enough that... Okay, thank you. We met on May 9th. There were two items of business, one of which was the doors which were discussed and I believe we approved the purchase last meeting. We also had a presentation on the new business, and this is what we were just talking about, the Giza presentation. And I'm very glad that nobody has built a pun about the old Giza who's chairing the committee. But anyway, we had proposals about the Giza projects for the summer of 2024. Bear in mind, this is a two-phase project. We approved the doors and I'll guess you call it minor repairs to the masonry for this summer. And the construction that we've just discussed is for the roof, the HVAC, and the geothermal. The geothermal proposal at $6.3 million. The roof replacement, which would also be done tentatively for 2024, would come in along with projects 3 and 4, a code compliant generator and transfer switch, and fire protection, which is project 4. I'll mention them because project 1 has been discussed at length. Fire protection, which was when the building was built back in 1995, there was a section of the building that was not sprinkled. At that time, that was consistent with the building code at that time. That is inconsistent with the building code now, and I think that's that would be an enhancement, and the cost for Project 4 was to be discussed, and I believe they gave that in their report just now. So anyway, that's the report from the May 9th meeting, and you've already done the job of voting for it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr.
You're
Nippert.
welcome.
We're going to move on to new business. Dr. Finnerty.
Nothing, thank you.
Tina.
Yeah, since the students aren't here, so I can't ask them how they're doing, but I obviously wish them all the very best, them and every student, with graduation coming up. It's exciting. And if I could take just a moment, and I hope it's not too embarrassing, Ms. Clayhold, but I want to thank you for coming in, very recently and embracing the budgetary process, thinking of creative ways to help us be able to fund some of these very large projects. And in such short order, and it's actually Mr. Suber's comment from earlier of the praise with the negotiations that you had done with a member of his, one of his colleagues, that, I just, again, wanted to take a moment to thank you for coming in and digging into that degree, and just really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. Expect more, because I have a lot of ideas, and at operations, I'm going to do, hopefully for this fall, when we start getting back together, I'll be preparing, you'll see a report of all of our open projects, what the budget is, what we spent so far, what our expectations are to complete, and the running balance of our capital funds. And also some more financial reports maybe that we can see on a monthly basis, monthly giving you projections of where I think we're going to be at the end of the year on revenue and expenditures. So yeah, look for more things to come.
Thank you. It's truly outstanding. Thank you.
Patty.
I do have two things. Tomorrow night is the Athletic Booster Club Senior Recognition, so that's always a night of celebration to see the awards and the accolades, the kids. And with that said, we have 4 track athletes that are going to states on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we have 2 hurdlers and 2 throwers. We have a discus and a shot put. So I just wish them the best. I mean, to get to that level is amazing. I mean, we just had a recognition about a month ago in the Hall of Fame for a state long jumper. To get to that state level is a lot of dedication, work, And of course, my husband would say it's all in the coaching, you know. Yeah, because he's got 2 throwers going. Yeah, of course. So, and also, it's a very special night tomorrow night to honor our Western students. We'll be having senior recognition at Upper Perk. The student superintendent of record always hosts it. We changed that. So the only thing that I'm starting to hear from some parents is a conflict. I have an athlete and I have a senior recognition. So maybe next year we'll just look a little bit more in detail and try to make sure everybody can go. But it's just that time of year. And I'd just like to thank all of our staff, our administration, everybody in this community, that this is a celebration time for us. And I know we're all busy because we're going from this to this to this to this. But this is the time to celebrate. Life is good. So it's going to be a busy night tomorrow night. That's all. Thank you, Al.
Jay. Joe.
Well, I had two quick things. I'd like to congratulate the student athletes that were here tonight first. Congratulate all of them, and thank you for coming. I know they have already left, but that they took time out to come here, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to congratulate also all of the student athletes that participated this year in every sport and represented Pottsgrove. Second, I would like to recognize, I seen out on social media, I would like to recognize the people that went to the St. Aloysius Cemetery and replaced the flags. I did see that, so I would like to recognize and congratulate and thank them for the wonderful job they did replacing the flags of American veterans, I believe it was. So thank you and great job.
That was our National Junior Honor Society kids at the middle school and Miss Deb McIlvain.
Yes, now I remember that. Yes, it was National Junior Honor Society. Nice job, young folks. Great job.
Dr. Nippert.
Yeah, just a real quick thing. I want to thank CMTA and Schrader and Yvette Young for their work in planning the revisions for West Pottsgrove this year, in planning the new HVAC, insulating the roof, repairing the cracked masonry, and the other details. We got to remember why we're spending, we've just approved roughly $10 million of repairs. Well, not yet. We're thinking of spending $10 million. I'm 2 moves ahead of you. But why are we doing this? And we're doing this not just for our current students, but the students who will be here 5 and 10 years down the road. And if you do a little bit of math, you're going to realize that a large chunk of those students 10 years from now haven't been born yet. And so it's our job to husband these facilities so that they're in good condition, not just for the kids now and for the people who have kids now, but for the kids who are going to be here long after, we're gone. So I want to thank you for their work, and more's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nippert. Come around. Jim.
Yes, actually, last night was the music awards for our students, and I've been going to that ceremony for several years, and it's always wonderful just because, seeing the enthusiasm of the students, but it's really grown over the few years. But I really would like to comment that there's, the represented orchestra, the band, and the choir, and the choral branch, but the students have showed such enthusiasm for each other when they won, different ones won awards, and a camaraderie across that, and that's due in part to the students, to the parents, but then also to our teachers, the music teachers from elementary all the way up to the high school. They've just done a wonderful job with our students, so I would really like to thank all those involved. So.
Bill. Ashley. Myself. A couple things. First one, I love when the students come up. I've always said that. It's the one thing I enjoy the most is when the students come up. I would love to see more opportunities. I'd like to see where the music award winners had a night where they could come up. I'd like to see our top students or our most growth students get a chance to also be highlighted, if that's possible, at a future time. Because the only reason we sit here is for those kids. I mean, really, that's the only reason I do this, is so we can make sure those kids get the proper education, and so eventually they become great citizens of Pottsgrove or wherever they eventually move to. I'd like to see more. That's all. I'd like to see more. Second thing is, obviously, since graduation is next week, I wanted to congratulate all of our students that are going to be graduating, seniors and everything like that. You all deserve a real round of applause and everything. We'll do all that formally next week, but I won't be the one saying anything because Mr. Jay Shrunk has a graduate, so I'm going to say congratulations to your grandson who's graduating, and Jay will be the one getting to talk, so I hope you got all those words set up. You're going to have to be the one saying everything. So I want to congratulate his son individually because he deserves it as well. All right. Everybody have a great graduation, great summer. We will see everybody here in a couple of weeks, but before I get to say goodbye, we're going to see if we have any more public comment. No public comment. I need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, we're out of here.